Thank you for the interview, Mike. Appreciate it. Did you stay up late? Last,
No, I didn't. Once I saw sort of that Virginia was so close, I knew what was going to happen for the rest of the evening. So I went to bed.
you saw what up close?
Well, when I saw that Virginia, which Biden won by like 10 points,
Virginia. Yeah.
I mean, Harris did win Virginia, but she won it by like 7 points less than
Mm,
Biden did. And that sort of told me that the Trump vote had been underestimated.
mm. By whom?
Everyone, probably even Trump.
Okay. Was there a glitch in polling or in media commentaries? Uh, uh,
Well, I mean, first of all, of course, polls are interesting. We talk about them, but it's not like if you watch a weather report, it makes sense to you because it helps you decide what to wear.
mm,
But a poll doesn't do anything for you. It's just the thing we talk about.
mm,
And here we are again. But generally speaking, the polls are pretty close.
mm.
It's just the weird thing is that every time they were a little bit wrong, they're always a little bit wrong in the same direction.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so they're all within the margin of error.
Hmm.
But usually, randomly, you would think that Harris might have done better in some, Trump better in some, but instead, Trump exceeded the poll by at least 2 points
Mm,
in every battleground state.
mm. Uh,
Nationally, it was pretty close.
just a couple of days before election day, there was a poll out of Iowa that suggested that Harris leads in Iowa, which was meant like a big surprise. So about this polling, you are very experienced. How do you see it? You said polling doesn't do anything, doesn't give you anything. You just talk about it. Timothy Snyder recently said that something like polling creates a meta reality, a reality of its own, that it doesn't reflect reality, uh, genuine reality. What do you
Well,
think?
it did reflect, the Iowa poll did reflect that that state was a lot closer than people thought it was going to be.
Mm,
And the pollster that did that is pretty well regarded. She's generally very correct. She wasn't that far off. I mean, again, margin of error.
mm. Uh, is it possible that I don't know, in some sense, do common people follow the news and do they orient themselves by polls?
No, 81% of the voters in this election, according to the exit information that I've seen, 81% of the people in this election made up their minds over 2 months ago.
Mm,
And so another 15% or so made up their mind a month ago.
mm.
So, the number of people that hadn't already made up their mind is pretty small.
And who are those people? Those undecided voters to the end.
Well, I'm in Pennsylvania, just for your audience's information. I'm from Massachusetts,
Mhm.
and Pennsylvania was a very close state. So I've been here for 2 weeks, knocking on doors of voters, both undecided voters and also people get out the vote.
Mhm.
And everybody's, what is it? Everybody's unhappy in their own way. Um, everybody's undecided in their own way. I think a lot of people aren't really undecided. They just don't want to admit who they're voting for.
Mm.
I've noticed that some emotional, and this is true around the world, this isn't just true in the United States, but there's certain emotional issues that really make people angry and even hateful. And I think that has to do with the whole area of sexuality, gay rights, transgender, and then the area of immigration.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying those two things are related, but what they both do is make some people fearful. and uncomfortable.
Is it some sort of a cultural war?
I think you see it all over the world. I think one of the reasons a lot of the American right, far right, really admire Putin is because he's anti-gay. I mean, like, who cares? Is my feeling. It's like, it's ridiculous, but people, you can't talk people out of their fears.
So did President Trump's victory was founded on those kind of fears?
I'd say four things. One is just the underlying Republican Democrat, even though he's hard to define as a Republican, his party's going to support him. So that gets you to 44% by itself, with nothing else happening. And then he understands the electorate. He's good at that. And I think the immigration and the transgender things really worked for him. I'm surprised they did as well as they did, but they did. And then the third thing is inflation. I think a lot of people, especially if you're a lower to moderate income, they feel inflation a little bit more than rich people do. I mean, rich people don't care about anything. And then there's probably some, I'm not going to say racism. I think that was probably had more to do with a certain percentage of men wouldn't vote for a woman. Not a big percentage, but enough macho guys that think people like Trump are strong leaders. Even though I see him as personally a very weak man, but they don't. So those would be the four things I would say led to Trump's victory.
Okay, so if we consider that, how are there some positive issues or policies that he proposed that led people to vote for him?
I think you can get lost in the policy thicket. I think a lot of this had to do with personality. And again, Trump's strong. He understands me. He doesn't like those other people, however you define other. And he's going to fight for people like me. I do think his immigration stance resonated with a lot of people, although his policy is incoherent. He's not going to round up and arrest 11 million people. I hope not. They'll certainly give me something else to do aside to work on the election. In his tariff plan, he wants to reduce income taxes by increasing tariffs. But I met a startling number of people, especially young men, who didn't understand if you raise tariffs, you raise prices. So on the one hand, they're like, oh, well, Biden screwed up the inflation thing. Trump will fix it with tariffs. Like, I don't even know what to say to you, man. I hope you don't vote. I don't know. Basic math skills.
I
even took my shirt off once. I didn't take my undershirt off, but I had like a flannel shirt on. And I took it off, and I looked. Said, this was made in Vietnam. This shirt's going to cost $10 more. You want to pay $10 more?
So, well, but if the shirt was made in the United States, it's supposed that American worker would manufacture it.
Yeah, but it'll take years to ramp that up. There's no capacity. And then even when you do ramp it up, you'll realize the reason they're made overseas in the first place. Because they're cheaper. Much as I'd like to buy American goods, and believe me, I do when I think the quality is worth the price, and I'm conscious of it. I do, and I wish more Americans did. But make no mistake about it, if you bring manufacturing, especially things like clothing, back to the U.S., that will cost you more money too. And it's not like our unemployment rate is super high. We have like a 3.4% unemployment rate.
I wanted to ask that because you mentioned inflation, but there are a lot of facts and numbers and in the media, and one of them is that inflation, that the United States recovered from inflation and COVID much faster than other countries, Western.
I just don't know what to say. People forget. They just forget like what Trump was like 4 years ago, what a disaster it was when he left. The unemployment rate was like 11%. Millions of people have died of COVID, not because his fault. That's not his fault, but his policy was incoherent and certainly didn't help people. He abetted rumors and misinformation that caused debates and factions in our country, and people forget all of that.
Isn't that interesting? Interesting. The guy that won't let go of power. That how do you say it? Made an insurrection. Had a mob that attacked the capital. Is now back after just 4 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
It's a remarkable political story. As much as I dislike Donald Trump, the man has a lot of energy. I mean, I don't know how all the lawsuits, all the time he spends sexually abusing women, breaking the law, campaigning, managing his businesses, trying to keep his sons out of jail. I mean, and then he still finds time to win the presidency. I mean, you have to admire his time management.
I just saw a graphic on a friend sent it to me. It says 34 felony counts, 1 conviction, 2 cases pending, 2 impeachments, 6 bankruptcies, and 4 more years.
That's the American math. There's literally, as I said, I'm in Pennsylvania, which is a major swing state. And I can't see it from the window, but next door is a Trump house. And they have a traditional Trump sign. And I'm in an area that Trump is pretty red. But she has another sign in her lawn. This is a very nice older woman, kind of a church lady. I don't know what the Serbo-Croatian equivalent of church lady is. And she's got a sign that says, "I'm voting for the felon." It's like they just don't, it's either they don't believe it or they don't care.
Do you have an explanation for all of this?
No, I don't get any single
billionaire from New York representing middle America working class, a felon representing Christian societies, whatever. Do you have an explanation?
I don't have an overall explanation. I do think that Trump has hit a vein of American politics that appeals especially to rural white people and young men of all colors. And it has, it's kind of a World Federation Wrestling appeal.
Pro wrestling. Yeah.
It's just like a big middle finger to the world. I'm not doing as well as I think I should be. There's other people that are doing well that shouldn't be. Screw them. Let's throw a bomb in there. What is the line from Heath Ledger's Batman? Some people just want to see the world burn. And Trump's their way of seeing the world burn.
And what can we expect now?
I honestly think it might have more of an effect on foreign policy, because a lot of domestic policies, Congress will support him, but they're not going to hurt their districts. There'll be some checks, even if the Republicans have the House and the Senate. But I think, I think Europe, which isn't unified on the issue either, but maybe more than the U.S., Europe needs to come together on the Ukraine, because the U.S. ain't going to do it. And they have the resources to do it. They can't quit. They have to quit hiding behind the U.S. The European Union and the NATO part that doesn't include the U.S. They have the resources.
So,
but whether they have the willpower or not, I don't know.
So, your prediction is that Trump will stop helping Ukraine
as soon as he can.
Why?
I mean, he'll have some opposition in Congress.
Why would he do that?
Because he doesn't like Zelensky and he likes Putin. He doesn't think geopolitically. he thinks personally.
Mm.
The world, he believes he is geopolitics.
But we saw in the last couple of months some of his associates from the first term went out in public and called him incompetent and many other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are there going to be in his next term associates that will try to keep him in check or keep him from burning up the world, as you said?
Well, that's a concern, you know, and I've expressed that concern numerous times. That the thing I'm most afraid of is that anybody that said, let's say even me, you know, maybe in Trump's first term, if somebody that I respected was appointed like Undersecretary of State, and they asked me to come in and run international programs, I might say, well, I don't want to serve Donald Trump, but that's a field I think I can do some good work in. I'll bet they'll leave me alone. You know, I might do that. This term, no, I don't think anybody with any sense is going to want to work for Donald Trump. I don't think everybody on his campaign voted for him. He's not a man that encourages love up close.
Yeah.
He might encourage some entertainment value and even affection and devotion from afar, but not up close. How many people wrote books that he hired? He's like, hey, this is the greatest guy I've ever hired. It's the greatest Secretary of State of all time. Then like 6 months later, they're writing a book about him, how bad he is. Who does that?
So
I think he's going to have a rough bunch is what I mean. I think they're going to do what he wants them to do. And the only checks are going to be the Congress, the states, the cities and towns, the people, and to some extent, the courts.
About the courts, the Supreme Court enhanced immunity of the president not so long ago. Is that now a threat when we have Trump in the White House?
Yes. Yeah. Because he'll take it to the extreme. That's one thing about you can predict about Donald Trump is whatever he's got, he'll take it to the extreme. So he'll define everything that he does as a presidential duty and that he's immune no matter what he does. He's not going to check himself. That's just a fantasy that some people have.
I don't know the latest. I haven't checked it now. Just before the conversation, how is the House race?
I don't know. It'll take maybe a day or two more to determine.
We don't know who holds the House yet.
No.
But the Senate is Republican.
Yes.
So what are how do they function together? The Senate, the House, and the presidency. How do they check themselves?
Well, you know, the House, even if the Republicans control the House, it's going to be very close. Right now, they have like it's a 4-vote margin. So, on something like the Ukraine, for example, if there's a House vote required, I think there's 10 Republicans that would vote with Ukraine. They're not just going to do, you know, whatever they're told, especially because, you know, this is Trump's last term. So he's not like, he might not be as scary as he was to him when he was running. So some of his crazier ideas, they might even get stopped by a Republican House or Senate. And there's certain courts, even the Supreme Court, which he, you know, has appointed some conservative justices. That, you know, I think there's certain things that are going to be even outside of their box. But the box is big and scary enough as it is.
But in any case, not so many checks.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. No. So what mistakes did the Harris campaign make?
Well, you know, it's easy to criticize. I've been down here working for him for 2 weeks, and I've developed a lot of affection for the volunteers that were here. There was a lot of energy on the ground, even in this red area. I mean, I have some small opinions. You know, one is I think Josh Shapiro probably would have brought them Pennsylvania. I like Tim Walz. He's a great guy. He's funny as hell, and nothing against him, but their notion that he was going to help in rural America, I just thought was from the beginning not a good one. The vice president doesn't help like with demographic groups, I don't think, especially amorphous ones like white rural people. That's like, what does that mean? Whereas Shapiro is very popular in Pennsylvania.
Mm.
And if they carried Pennsylvania, we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah, the Pennsylvania was the key state.
They actually, the nickname of Pennsylvania is the Keystone State.
The Keystone State.
Yeah, it is. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. I think she should have focused more on economic issues. Maybe come out with a really tough, hard immigration policy. But that was a mistake Biden made, not her.
But
what are you going to do about that?
As you said, you talk to average voters, and they don't do average voters really understand economic complexities?
Well, voters don't understand complexities, but I have to say two things. If you got a bunch of economists in a room who did understand complexities, they wouldn't agree either.
Yeah.
And one thing people do understand is their life.
Mm.
They know if they have a job, if their neighbor has a job, if people on their block have jobs, how much people are paying for gas, how much people are paying for this or that.
But
they understand that.
Unemployment rate is low, but then again, they are unsatisfied.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they feel like they should have a better job.
Mm. As you said to that guy, I hope you don't vote.
Yeah.
Can we criticize the voting, the voters? Is that legitimate?
I'm not going to do that. I mean, you're talking about tens and hundreds of millions of people. I find myself at odds with half of my fellow citizens, but that's the way it is.
Mm.
Some people are going to say this election was because America's anti-woman and racist.
Mm.
And I think there's a certain percentage of people that voted against Harris because she's a woman. And I think there's a certain percentage of Republicans that are white supremacists. But, for the most part, I think Trump was making an economic appeal. And if there's a hate message in it, and there definitely is, it's about immigrants. And of course, immigration can be tied to race because nobody's like really upset about the Croatian immigrants sneaking across the border, right? Because you're white people. It's like, oh my God, the Croatians are here. Trump says, oh, the Norwegians are taking our neighborhoods over.
Eating dogs and cats.
Yeah, it's right. And I'm from Springfield, Ohio.
Mm.
I was born and raised there. My family's there. That's the reason I came down here. I got so pissed off about that bizarre lie.
Mm.
That.
So in Springfield, there you can vouch. You can say it from first hand. There is no such thing as immigrants eating dogs and cats.
No. No. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, they don't believe it. So whatever works. Trump will say whatever works.
Mm. Can you, is it possible to par that strategy? Is there a cure against that strategy of lying, of deceiving, of violence? Are the Democrats, should they use the same tools?
Well, that's a scary question. And I think I would say, I hope not. That I guess I still have a hope that eventually the truth does matter. I think Trump's an unusual character, possibly a one-off. I can't see anybody that's going to be the next Trump. If they try to be, I think they'll probably just be ridiculous. Unless they come out of the entertainment industry, somebody I don't see right now. And I do think the Democrats could become a little bit more populist, maybe quit paying attention to fringe issues, pay more attention to economic questions. Maybe they should come up with policies that like benefit everybody economically, like, let's have a negative income tax. Let's forget about how we do welfare, and we'll just, on your income taxes, we'll just guarantee everybody a minimum income. Try to get the race out of it so you can appeal to everybody, no matter what their income status is. They definitely have this elitist image, and they're going to have to try to get beyond that. I mean, if Harris had just done 3 points better in the rural counties of Pennsylvania, she would have won the state. But she couldn't. She just didn't break through the rural vote.
So you have this electoral system, and originally, correct me if I am mistaken, it is constructed and designed to stop demagogues and populists to gain power, to be a check on the popular vote. So what is the role of the electoral system today? If we have a populist in the White House.
I mean, I would wish we would get rid of the electoral college. It seems to me to be one thing about Americans is they're very conservative about their Constitution. It's hard to change it. It's hard to change people's minds about it, and it's even harder to change the Constitution. It just takes a lot of stuff for that to happen. And because smaller states benefit some from the electoral college, the chances of getting enough states on board to do it is small. But who wants to change a game they're winning? And who wants to be the first one to do that? Even more. So I'd say at least since this century, going back to Bush v. Gore, the electoral college has definitely benefited the Republicans. Whether that'll be true in the future, I don't know. You'd have to look at that. It definitely doesn't fulfill its original function of preventing a demagogue from becoming president. I think the people who wrote the Constitution lived in a totally different world. They didn't foresee a mass electorate. I mean, that happened by 1826. So some were still alive to see it happen. They were surprised by it.
So today is November 6th. It is the day Lincoln won the election.
I'm sorry?
Abraham Lincoln won the election on this day, November 6th.
Yeah.
And as we know, after Lincoln won, the Civil War broke out. The country was very divided. How divided are the United States today?
Well, I think a lot is pretty divided. I mean, mentally certainly is. And I think what happens next in terms of our polity, well, first of all, remember, we have another election in 2 years. So the House and the Senate will be up. And the next time the Senate's up, it'll look better for the Democrats because there's more Republican seats up. So if we have an ugly 2 years, then Trump could lose both of his majorities. So there is that outlet, that check out there. And then the other check is the states have a lot of power. Cities have a reasonable amount of power. What worries me is that a lot of people have voted for Trump, they don't believe him. It's almost like an advantage for Trump that everybody knows he's a liar. So when he says stuff like, I'm going to round up all the illegal aliens and get them out of the country, they're like, he's just saying that shit. But I think you need to take him seriously. And if he starts to do that, who's going to help him? Who's going to cooperate? What's that mean for our country? Where do these people go? Many of these people have lived here for years. Some we call them dreamers because it refers to a piece of legislation, but they're children that came here. And some of them didn't even know they weren't a citizen. How would you know, right? I mean, if you went to the polling place in the US and all of a sudden somebody says, can you prove to me you're a citizen? In the US, the person would be like, how am I going to do that? How can I prove I'm a citizen? I guess I'd have to get like an original birth certificate. But who the hell walks around with their birth certificate? Every time I need one, it takes me like 5 hours to find it.
Well, I know you are a U.S. citizen. I saw your passport.
Yeah. Yeah, bring your passport. But a lot of people don't have passports in the US. So in other words, what I'm saying is, I got off track. What I'm saying is, there's certain things that if Trump tries to do, it will cause resistance. If he tries to do a federal ban on abortion, that will cause a lot of resistance. I don't think he will. I think he's going to stay out of that. If he tries to round up immigrants and use law enforcement on people that are living here peacefully and working, that will cause, I hope, that will cause resistance. If he tries to eviscerate the civil service and just fire people, which he legally can't do, that will cause resistance.
I meant to ask about civil service because there is opinion that he would totally politicize it, the professional civil service, and that is like a jeopardy, a great danger for America.
I'm not sure the mechanism for that would be. He'd really have to have congressional support for that.
And on immigration, we had a discussion in a small group in Carl's library yesterday, and a woman from Canada said that Harris didn't do anything about immigration, and that's just a general statement, and that's the reason that why would she vote for Trump. But is that immigration issue solvable? Can it be solved?
Solved?
Solved, yes. Is that something that can you stop immigration?
Well, first is you got to define the problem, and that's, a lot of Americans, including me, don't see immigration as a problem. It's the only source of population growth in the United States. It gives us, I think, a competitive advantage over Europe and Japan and China and other places, because the people that come here, they work pretty hard to get here. I mean, they're the kind of people you want in your country for the most part. So the question really seems to me to be, can you get some kind of control over the southern border walk-in situation? And I think there's ways to do that, and there was a bill to do it, and Trump told the people in the House, the Republicans in the House, to kill that bill, even though they co-sponsored it, because he didn't want the issue to go away. My guess is he'll come up with a very similar bill. He'll call it something else, and then he'll say he solved the problem. That's what I would do.
We have 4 more minutes. I want to ask you, reading the Croatian newspapers and following the media, a lot of right-wing politicians praise Trump's victory. How do you see the impact Trump's victory will have on the world, on the political world? Like,
I think there's 2 ways. One is it'll affect just international relations, as all presidents do, to some extent. We talked earlier in the show about the Ukraine, his relationships with NATO. But on the second, a different level, I think it's going to embolden right-wing parties around the world. They look at him as a model. Like he looks at Putin and Orban as a model. But people have to ask themselves, like, what kind of society they want to live under. And also, what kind of society do they think they actually live under right now? But, these things happen, right? They're cyclical. There'll be some reaction to this as well. But at the end of the day, they have to perform.
About Palestine and Israel, how do you see what will be his policy towards that?
In Gaza?
Yes. Gaza, yes.
Well, that's a complicated question. So, it's the problem's 10 years older than me, right? No one's come up with a solution. The problem shifted some, but still the same problem. Can the people in the area accept the Jewish state? And can the Jewish state accept being in the neighborhood? That's not going to go away. Nobody's going to quit. No one's going to say, hey, you're right. We shouldn't be a country anymore. This is not going to happen. You're not going to have the next Yugoslavia. It's not. And Israel's not going to quit. So Trump's going to face the same basic problems, the underlying problems. I personally think that Netanyahu was waiting this out until Trump got elected, and then he'll somehow figure out a way to come up with a ceasefire that gives Trump some credit for it, because he prefers Trump in office than the Democrats. I think he was waiting. Now, will he wait until January? I don't know. I think he'll back off a little bit, but he'll wait for Trump to have some role in it.
Can we expect a meeting of Putin and Trump soon?
Probably, I'd say within a year.
That's the world we are living in right now since today. Thank you.
Aren't some Ukrainians still like occupying a small part of Russia? That's just the weirdest thing. What do they do all day? Like the soldiers, they're in Russia, but nobody seems to be doing anything about it. It's just so strange. It's like a bunch of Canadians occupying Seattle. And we're just like, well, okay, well, whatever, that'll take care of itself.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Zoom gives us less than a minute, so thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. And I'd say one last thing. In these times, you look at different views of the world, you look at different views of what your country should be, and you look at different values. And I think it's up to all of us to make our own choices and not just go with the crowd. Definitely be suspicious of anybody that appeals to hatred.
Okay. Thank you, and all the best to you.
You too. Take care.
Well.
Ciao.